a better chance for everyone.
All right. We love our guns because we love freedom. If you don't have freedom, then it's because you don't have guns. People talk about why we're obsessed with guns. It's not an obsession with guns. It's an obsession with freedom. So Nephi Khaliki here with the Double Tap Show. We are here live every Saturday from 2 to 3 p.m. Joining me, as usual, in the studio is Mel, the call an ambulance guy.
Oh, yeah, here we go again. Another great show.
Yep, still not in jail.
Yes.
still gonna be going strong. Also joining us in the studio today, Steve Armstrong from xguns.com. We're going to be talking with him a little bit today as we go in and out about today's subject, which is an important one, and we have a very, very special guest coming on in the second segment, Dale Comstock. Those of you that don't know who that is, better look him up. American badass, former Delta Force. He is a monster, as he likes to describe himself. Very handsome monster, though. So we're going to be talking about being one with your gun. One of the things that really gets me at Vegas CCW, we run classes 4 days a week down there, and I would say 9 out of 10 people, Mel, have the wrong gun.
Probably is true.
And when you go through the crowd and you ask them, hey, why did you pick the gun you have? And the reasons, I could tell you what all of them are. They would say, oh, well, it came highly recommended. Or they might say, I like the way it felt, round capacity. They give all these reasons that really have nothing to do with why you should pick that gun, right? I know, Mel, when we went through your gun, you got your little revolver, right?
But you said it. I bought that a long time ago, and when you fitted me and told me about it, it was the perfect gun for me at that time.
Yeah, well,
yeah,
but that's the idea. So the worst question a person can ask when they are new to guns and they walk into a gun store, the first thing they're going to say is, what's a good gun to get?
Yeah.
And what is this guy going to say?
He's going to try to sell you the gun that he wants to
He's
sell
going to tell you of the 5 that are in front of him, and then you buy the 5th one, and then the next person comes in and says, what's a good gun to get? And he's like, well, the 4th one. Until he gets all the way down to the bottom of the list, and then he reorders them all.
Right.
And then, the thing that really upset me was when a particular gun range, I'm not going to mention them, but people will probably figure it out anyway. Guy comes into the class. He's 80 years old. And I going through, hey, take your gun apart. I want to see, the functionality, are familiar with it. And he says, well, there's no safety on this one. And I go, what? No, I know that gun. There's a safety on that. And he goes, no, there's no safety on this. And I go, let me see that. And I grab the gun. I don't see no safety on a gun I know has one. And so I flip it over, and there's the safety. And I'm like, man, those bastards at that gun range on Highland sold him a left-handed gun. He's 80 years old. What's he going to do with that gun? He's going to load up some ammo that somebody told him to buy, sold him a box of $50 ammo for hollow points or black talons, whatever they sold him, and he's going to go put it in his drawer. And then somebody's going to come through his house. He's going to grab his gun out of the drawer, and he's going to pull it up to fire it, and it's not going to do nothing. He's going to look at it, which is the first thing people do when their gun messes up. And nothing's going to happen. He might rack the slide, still didn't solve the problem. Right? If that had been my grandfather, I would have drove down there and smacked the crap out of somebody for selling him that gun. This is what really upsets me about the firearms industry. And their solution to everything is just get somebody a gun. They don't care what gun they sell you as long as they sell you a gun. Right? And that's upsetting to me because I think we have a bigger responsibility to make sure that we're giving people the right information. If you don't have the right information and that time comes, you don't get that 1-star review from that customer that took your crappy advice and died from it. You don't get that bad review because he's dead. And I wish that the firearms industry would take their role as serious as a doctor or a surgeon takes their Hippocratic oath and provides accurate information, takes the time to sit down with somebody, find out what their needs are, and to have the integrity to say, you know what, a gun's not for you right now. You need a few more things in between that. You need to develop some confidence. You need to develop your mindset better. You need to understand what the game is before you start moving pieces. Right? That's one of the hardest things, is because people definitely think that having a gun means that they automatically win. They feel powerful with the gun. But as I often say in class, that if you're a bitch without a gun, you're a bitch with a gun. It doesn't matter. Everybody's always arguing that, well, guns don't kill people. People kill people. But if that's true, then guns not going to do the fighting for you either. You have to do the fighting. This is the false confidence that the gun industry tends to sell people. And who do they sell it to? The most vulnerable people. I'm upset about this constantly because you hear people telling vulnerable people, hey, this is what you need, all right? Hey, here, Granny, here's a .50 caliber Desert Eagle. It's on sale this week. Oh, well, that's a good deal. I think I'll have that. He says the bigger the gun, the more safe I am. And that's not how it works. 90% of self-defense, especially when it comes to hand-to-hand or a gun, 90% of it is your confidence, your attitude. And there's two things that people don't get taught. One of them is how to fit a gun properly. Because understand this, those of you that aren't aware of this, when you pull out your gun under an adrenalized situation, under your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight, you don't get to see your sights ever again. And because of that, what have you been prepared for? Then you're out into the middle of no man's land, and what does that trigger? It triggers fear, because suddenly you're in unfamiliar, fear of the unknown, which is the greatest fear to mankind. Nobody's preparing you for the fact that you're going to come off of your sights. And so what we teach in the sense of martial arts and gunfighting is let's prepare you for the actual moment and not for this nonsense on the range where you don't focus on your front sight, but then they also tell you focus on his hands because the hands do the evil. Well, which one is it? Right? There's so many contradictions because most of the firearms training I see in the world is tradition. It's one person passing it on to another without it ever being vetted in a fight, or what the gun industry's missing, and we did at the Las Vegas gunfights, was randori, or sparring. If you want to learn to fight with a gun, you need to spar. You're not going to learn to fight punching the heavy bag the rest of your life. You need to at least work on mitt work. You need that one-on-one. So when you have that experience or that event occur, if that gun's not fitted properly to you, then it's not going to perform. And so the objective is to keep that gun so that it has a natural point of aim. So when you reach up for the target and you become target focused, your eyes and the gun are lined up. And most of that is set with a grip angle. But there's 7 points to fitting a gun. And the 7 we talk about are your trigger reach, your slide lock reach, your mag reach, all 3 fingers on the gun, thumb and middle finger touching if not overlapping, and your natural point of aim, which is a deal breaker. If you bring that gun up and reach out for the target and your sights aren't where they're supposed to be, you don't have a natural point of aim with that gun, which means your eyes are going to be right when you go target focus and your gun's going to be wrong. And so you're banging it out and it's going over their head or it's going into their crotch. Either way, it's not where you're intending it to go. And that foundation has to be set up by properly selecting the right gun. There's a lot of things I wish I could show on the radio, right, about how you fit a gun so that it ergonomically fits you perfectly, not for when you're on the range where you have all the time in the world and you can make a little list and check off all these things before you pull the trigger. Understand this. Your opponent gets to go first. See, that's different in the military. When we start talking to Dale, like this is different. In the military, you can go and attack, right? On the civilian side, you have to let that guy go first. You got to hold the door open for the guy that's going to murder you. You can't go first. And because of that, that changes the dynamics. And all of these guys, these Instagram and their sub-second draws and all this nonsense, they're never going to get to use that because the other guy has that courtesy of going first. And so some of the strategies and tactics that I hear in the gun world and from instructors, especially NRA instructors, right, which are basically dinosaurs, these are not tactics that work really well in the real world. They're just not. You want, in the gunfights, Mel, remember we had a lot of UFC fighters, special forces guys, SWAT guys, you name it. We put them in fights. And I had an easier time turning a wrestler into a gunfighter than I did a gun guy into a gunfighter. And that's because they don't have the fighter's instinct. They don't have that right mentality. And gun guys tend to hide behind the gun a lot. Well, the gun doesn't do the fighting for you. You have to do the fighting. That's the reality of it. The gun is just a tool. That's it. And a hammer is only as good as the carpenter, right? And it's the same thing with guns. And so today we're going to talk about how to get one with your gun, how to find that comfortability, because that leads to confidence. And confidence is the key to self-defense. It's also the key to life. It's how you get better opportunities, better pay, and better lay. Everything gets better with confidence. And then you find out nobody's messing with you anymore. And you're like, dang, I took all these classes about self-defense and nobody's messing with me anymore. That's the objective of what we're trying to get to, is a point where people can be comfortable with what they're doing with the handgun. Because if you don't look right and you don't have the right confidence over the top of that gun, well, guess what? You're just encouraging another person to attack you. And that's what we're going to be addressing today. Before we go to the break, I just want to highlight here, xguns.com is our presenter here today on the show. And one of the things they do very well is customize guns specifically to fit a person's hands. And we work together, me and Steve have known each other a long time, work together to specifically customize a gun so that it does have all 7 points of fitting. And once we have that done, then people can build confidence on that gun because they know, you know what? If I ever have to pull this gun, I'm going to mess somebody up because I am one with my gun. I'm dialed in. Everything I have with this gun is absolutely perfect. I'm confident. It fits me right. And so I encourage you to go to xguns.com. These are local guys. They're here in Las Vegas. So make sure when you're getting a gun that you're figuring out whether this gun is really right for you. If somebody's telling you, hey, get this gun because of this. It's like buying a shoe. I can't tell you what's the right shoe to get. You have to try some on, and you have to know what's it for. Am I getting it because I want it for sports or I want it for a dress-up? xguns.com. This is where you go locally to make sure you take whatever gun you have and max it out so that it's the perfect gun for you. This is the Double Tap Show. We'll be right back after the break with our guest, Dale Comstock.
.1015 FM KDON.
All right, we are back. This is the Double Tap Show. We are here every Saturday from 2 to 3 p.m. I am Nephi Khaliki, joined with Mel, the call and ambulance guy, and Steve Armstrong from xguns.com. And we have on the phone from Florida, amazing guest, Dale Comstock. Dale, welcome to the Double Tap Show, brother.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
I know, man. I've been trying to make this happen for a minute, so I've been following your career for quite a while, and definitely enjoyed our conversation the other day. We were on the same page about a lot of stuff, and so I wanted to bring you on because I know you're obviously familiar with weapon systems, but we really connected on the idea of how confidence plays a role in self-defense, and I wanted to bring you in to get your thoughts on that subject.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so I was listening to the show earlier, and you nailed it, man, on many levels. You're right. There's a lot of between us. There's a lot of commonality and agreement. So, I actually put a post on Instagram. I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 days ago, and I got a lot of really great comments. And then there's always the 2 or 3 haters out there that just could not believe that I would actually say. And this is what I said, and I stand by it, because I've made a living out of coaching people on confidence and basically how to be successful with your brain. And so what I was pointing out was, the weapon is nothing more than an extension of your body. It's an extension of your nervous system, extension of your muscular system. It's an extension of your physical being, and it's connected to the brain, the whole brain housing group, your eyes, the whole nervous system. So it works as one system. And you made a point earlier about when things go sideways, what happens is you don't pick up the sights, okay? And I was pointing out that if you practice enough, especially with under 15 meters, you'll end up just point shooting or instinctive shooting if you've trained well enough at it. And if you're trying to pick up your sights at under 15 meters with the guy that actually got the go button first, you're going to lose, because for you to pick up your sights, apply all the combat fundamentals of marksmanship. It's like reading the manual as you're going to take the shot. Okay, step 1, step 2, and you can't do that. What you have to do is rely on the nervous system, which, like I said, is intimately tied to every part of your being, your brain, your eyes, your hands, your arms, your muscles. Everything works together. And I made the point that really, in the end of the day, the real weapon is your brain. Literally, it's the brain and the nervous system. That's the weapon. The firearm itself is nothing more than a tool, an extension of your weapon that allows you to basically project your will onto the adversary. And so, and I made a point that, all the tactics, and I'm not knocking IPSC or ISPA or all these other guys. If you're going out and you're shooting for score and for time and fast, that's great. That's just like MMA. Don't believe for a minute, though, that's going to translate into combat, okay? Because there's some variables in combat you cannot simulate in training. And I'm here to tell you, I've got many years at this, and I can tell you there are these variables that you cannot replicate on a range that are going to happen for real, okay? And you mentioned the fight or flight reflex. There's also called stress shock phenomena. It's basically the deer in the headlights. So it's like, what do I do now? Because I've never confronted this situation. And basically what happens is you stall. And when you stall, you die. Okay, it's condition black, basically, when we talk about the color codes of readiness. And so, you can train all that you want in a range. You can run. You can put the timer on you, all the stressors that you want. It's not the same kind of stress until somebody's actually trying to let the air out of you, for real. That's a whole different game changer, and your whole dynamics change. So, I had like 3 different guys. Actually, one of them's out there in Vegas. I don't know, I can't remember his name, but it was some big old fat dude that was complaining because he couldn't run up to a range fast enough to shoot. And I'm like, well, maybe I'll lose some weight. But and so, anyways, the point I was going to make was these guys stand on the range. For example, they're going to do a pelvic draw, okay, and so they're standing upright, the hands are up, or maybe to the side, and then, if timer goes off and they draw the weapon. Yeah, good luck with that, because in a real fight, like you said earlier, the bad guy, he gets to go first. And basically everything you do is reactive. You're inside of his OODA loop, and what you're reacting off of him. Trust me, you're not going to be standing there with your hands by your side or over your head or where the hell you want them, and reach down and draw your weapon from, for example, if you're going to carry it in the pelvic area or around the back. And so you've got to train for that. And there's another dynamic that takes place that nobody accounts for. And basically what happens is this: when you are actually faced with stress or a real gunfight, okay, even if you're upright like these guys are on the range, I see all the time, what happens is you naturally go into a combat crouch. Okay, that's a natural response to a threat. And what that means is you get lower, you lower your upper body, you basically face the threat, and now you're resorting to large muscle groups, okay, gross motor skills. Okay, and this has been proven time and time again. It's been studied. Guys that learn how to shoot from a Weaver stance automatically in the gunfight went to basically a modified isosceles or combat crouch. Yep. Because that was what their nature was telling them to do, is like get low and get strong. Be ready to run or be ready to climb a tree. but don't just stand upright like a flagpole. And so, these are the kind of variables that, you've got to account for and train to. And even if no matter how perfect you get your training environment, at the end of the day, there's always that little bit there. That's that little bit of doubt. What if that guy is just a little bit faster in the fundamentals? Maybe he mastered one fundamental better than I did, and that's the game changer, right? And so It's on everybody's mind, and it's a stressor, and that stressor will put you in that fight or flight. And then the other thing that happens, whether you're in fight or flight, your heart rate goes over 120 beats per minute, and when it does, you lose gross fine motor skills. Now you're in the gross motor skills. If you're lucky, you're in the compound motor skills. Most likely, you're in gross motor skills. You start crunching the trigger. You start healing the gun. You start doing everything but actually applying those same nice combat marksman fundamentals on the range. You don't do that no more. And so, I got thrown under the bus by a few guys. I'm like, my retort was, okay, tell me again, how many guys did you shoot, for real, in a real fight? Tell me your theory and why I'm wrong, you're right. And their only answer was, well, how do you tell me that you don't know how to shoot without telling me you know how to shoot? I'm like, really? But anyways, that's their ego. Their ego will get them killed at the end of the day. And so what's the answer to that? And I know I'm rambling and talking quite a bit right now, but what is the answer? Well, first of all, try to train as close as you can to combat, right? As simulate as best as you can. Second part of it is you really need to condition your mind for combat. You mentioned something earlier about, sparring and things like that. That's not a bad idea. It teaches you to overcome that inhibition or that little fear factor of confronting another man. And maybe you won't die in a sparring match, but, it brings you pretty close to, that oh crap moment. But ultimately, at the end of the day, experience speaks volumes for, surviving a gunfight. The more times you've actually done it, the more relaxed, the more calmer you get, and that circle of awareness stays open, and you don't, you're not in that tunnel vision, you're not into the loss of depth perception, and all these other things. But anyways, your turn.
So that's exactly no, it's great stuff, Dale. That's exactly why we started Las Vegas Gunfights, was because we knew in order to induct somebody into the the sympathetic nervous system, you needed another human being. And in martial arts, they call it randori, and that's your sparring. And if you want to learn to fight with a gun, you need to fight another human. That's my biggest problem with gun training is it's 1v none. And it needs to be a jiu-jitsu format, 1v1. So take the lethality out of it and start sparring with guns, which is what we did at Las Vegas Gunfights. We're going to be bringing back the sport of professional gunfighting with simunition and going the pay-per-view route, which is what we had started back when we launched in 2015. We ran over 11,000 people through these fights, and they were throwing up and they were passing out. So we knew we had a true adrenal response. So that's what I think needs to happen. You said earlier, Dale, about bringing the training as close to combat situation or fighting as you can. Well, that means you're going to have to mix it up. You absolutely are going to have to mix it up. And part of that, comes with selecting the right equipment. I don't know how to tell people, without people getting mad at me either. I remember one time, Dale, I said that Glocks were more prone to malfunction. And what I meant was that, they came after me with pitchforks. What I meant to say was that polymer guns are less forgiving of poor form. So if you have a polymer gun, it doesn't have enough of its own weight. It's lighter. So you got to bring that to it. If you loose grip a Glock, it's going to double feed. And that's just things people don't want to talk about. Their precious Glock. Right.
It's actually the number one rated in
and actually, there's actually something I want to expand on when it comes to that, right? So the Glock's a good example. You've got the light polymer handle, and you got the heavier slide up top, and so you have a little bit of a imbalance, if you will, on the weapon system. But what's actually important as well is the fulcrum point in your hand. So if you don't have a good grip and you don't keep that line of bore low inside the web of the hand, then you're going to end up getting a little bit more flip. Now, the counter to that, and this is another thing I've seen, and let me just say this, man. I don't go out and teach firearms training. I hardly ever go out and shoot. I just shoot for, sometimes somebody invites me out or whatever, I'll go out and shoot. Yeah. But I'm still very proficient at it. I do a lot of dry fire at home. But the thing that always kills me is two things. One is the grip. Everybody thinks that, oh, okay, I've got to, place my hand on the weapon so that my both thumbs are overlapping, but they screw that up. Most instructors actually don't know how to grip the weapon. The reason what you're supposed to do with your support hand is actually lock that wrist at a 45-degree angle as much as you can, and then take the bite on the weapon. If you do it properly, you can't even extend out your elbows. You have a slight bow. And that technique was actually originally developed by John Shaw and Jerry Bradshaw, Jerry Barnhart and John Shaw. Got my names wrong. But those two guys, I remember when they introduced it to the unit. We learned how to shoot like that. And the reason that they came up with that grip is to manage the recoil on the second shot so the gun stays level and you can get a faster shot off without having to worry about too much flip and too much recoil on the gun. But a lot of guys just think, oh, I just put my hands together like a pancake like this and lay the thumbs on each other and I've got it. And no, and then they wonder why the gun's flipping. It's because of that. I found that when I teach students, particularly, especially like women are great students. If they never shot before, they leave their egos at home because they actually didn't have one to bring to begin with. And when they start screwing up, I tell them, hey, just focus on this grip. I tell them how to do it. And then when they focus on their grip, it tightens their shot right up. And they don't even pay attention to the other fundamentals. The other problem is guys show up on the range, and they right from day one, they want to shoot like Wyatt Earp. And, and I have to keep telling guys, listen, man, advanced techniques are the basics mastered. If you want to impress me, shoot slow and shoot smooth all day long. I don't care how slow and smooth you shoot, as long as you're doing that over and over, because what you're doing is developing the nervous system, okay? It's like in martial arts. You're developing form, okay? Form facilitates function. When you have good form, the speed will naturally come. Yes. And, and it's just so frustrating when guys come out there and they want to learn all the sexy stuff, and this is why I pointed out in my Instagram account, it don't matter. I said, what's the point of shooting double X's at 15 meters at a moving target and you're moving? I said, the chances of that happening, you have a better chance of winning $1 billion lottery than ever find yourself in an engagement where you got to shoot with that kind of precision. I said, focus center mass, okay? Focus on center mass. Focus on compound motor skills. That is moving your large muscles and combining with your fine motor skills, your trigger press. Don't come out there, and unless you're, like I said, if you're a sports shooter, great, more power to you. But just don't think because you're shooting really good on the range, that's going to carry over in a gunfight. It might in some gunfights when the guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing, and you might actually have a jump on him. But when I guarantee you, some guy like me or Larry or a lot of my friends, we show up at a gunfight, some of these guys are going to go, uh-oh, do I really want to do this? Probably not. You know?
Start backing down real quick. That's exactly the part of it too. It's the self-defense, is giving people the right information. I get these instructors out here. They all hate my guts because I tell people the truth, and I bring people on like you who are willing to tell the truth, and not just hiding the truth so they can keep selling the same crap they're selling.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's frustrating for me, definitely.
And I was actually accused of that. It's like, oh, you're just trying to, you're peddling old, whatever it was, 80s or 90s techniques, and blah, 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 and you're just trying to sell something. I said, dude, I don't need to sell anything. I live literally in 3 countries, between Philippines, Bali, and Florida. I own company. I do whatever I want. I don't need to sell guns. I'm not interested in that. I'm not trying to sell. What I'm trying to sell is people how to think, not what to think, but how to think so they can perform better, whether it's shooting a gun or driving a car or whatever the hell they're trying to do in life. The other thing, too, is I'll point out is when it comes to training, there's really 4 levels. When we start training, we want to start basically in a static environment. It's dry fire drills. Okay, that's just static, slow, smooth, fast, right? Then we want to take it to some fluidity, right? We want to speed it up a little bit, maybe walking, running, turning drills, right? Shooting multiple targets. Then we're going to take it to a dynamic drill, and I kind of equate that to what you mentioned earlier about man-on-man, force-on-force with, say, simunitions, for example, right? Non-lethal, but it's about as close as we're going to get to actual combat because the fourth level of training is combat, okay? And you don't get to go to the 4th level, probably not on your own, not voluntarily anyways. And that's when you need to be ready, is for that moment when, hey, I wasn't ready for the 4th level of training. Well, guess what? It's training time. Let's see what you got. Yep. So, there's a lot that goes to training, but a big part of it is the psyche. Most people dismiss that. I've heard people say, oh, you don't need to know that. You just need to do this. You know what? It always helps if you can teach the science, the physiology and the kinesiology associated with actually weapons presentation and actual what happens in combat, real combat, and it changes the dynamics of shooting all day long.
Yep. And we need to train people in the sympathetic nervous system, and that's my biggest issue with training is it's always training in the chill box, and you need to put stuff in the fight box. And because you won't have access to that stuff when the stuff hits the fan. So, Dale, hang on with me. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to put the phone number out here. If you guys want to call in, I got some questions for Dale. The phone number is 702-257-5396. That's 702-257-5396. Again, I want to remind you the things we're talking about here with Dale Comstock. Look him up on the internet. You guys will find out a tremendous amount of credibility with Dale, and obviously you can hear that. But getting that gun dialed in for you so that it works for you involuntarily, so that when you pull it up, it's married to your eyes. You're going to get the basic gun out of the box. It's going to be 80% in the pocket. You're going to have to do stuff with aftermarket products or mag extenders or reach extenders. There's going to be different things for you to bring it up to code, so to speak, so that it matches you naturally. And that's why I want you guys to visit xguns.com. They're here locally. They're over off of Sunset and McLeod, X-Guns, and Steve Armstrong. Steve, how long you been doing this?
I've been in the firearms industry. I've been in the firearms industry a little over 20 years. Prior to that was military, and then after I did executive protection and higher end security, and then I got into the firearms industry directly.
And what made you get involved in customizing guns so that they...
Problem was I couldn't find a gun that was perfect for me. It's the reach, the grip, the natural point of aim. Everyone immediately goes out and says, oh, go buy a Glock. Well, I grab it, and I'm looking at the top of the slide. It doesn't fit me. It's not the right gun for me. And that's why it's the number one traded in firearm in the country.
Be careful, Steve, man. People come out here with pitchforks and stuff. Don't talk about the Glock gods.
Oh, they've been coming after me forever. Thank goodness their gun will fall apart.
It's heresy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a decent gun, but the whole reason it's so popular and why so many law enforcement agencies went after it is because they sell them to them for $250. And when I was in law enforcement sales, that's all they ever did was buy the cheapest gun possible. They don't buy the best gun possible. When people are procuring equipment for police departments, they're not paying attention to the quality.
Yeah, well, that's why I've sent a tremendous number of people and friends that I want to keep friends, right? So I send them to you to get them dialed in so that specific gun. If you want to come in, do pistol fittings, we do them at Vegas CCW. We're going to do the 7-point fit. Steve knows how to do the same thing. That's why we get along so good. But get that gun from the basic 80%, right? Pick the right gun, and then you're going to tweak it about 20% to get it to check the list of all those things off, so they're done automatically, and you don't have to do it when some guy's got his heater in your face.
Exactly. And if you ever need to be custom fitted, you can always come in the shop. I have a private area that we can go in, and we can custom fit you a pistol as well. Yeah,
so remember, xguns.com. We're going to be going on a quick break. Again, I'm going to give the phone number out, 702-257-5396, and we'll take some calls when we get back with Dale Comstock, and we'll be back in just a minute.
101.5 FM, KDON.
You gotta know when to draw down, when to call the law down, know when to move and when, know when to shoot. You better move for cover. In the middle of a gunfight, there's no time to be a hero till the shooting's done.
All right, we are black. This is the Double Tap Show. We're here every Saturday from 2 to 3 p.m. Joining us on the call is Dale Comstock. Dale, welcome back to the Double Tap Show. We had a caller here, but he fell off. So now that you've had a chance to think about things, Dale, I bet we have a lot of the same problems with people that call Well, like I said that about Glocks one time, and man, they really went in on me online about saying something. But it's not that Glock is a good gun, bad gun. It's either right for someone or wrong for someone. It's not. It's not, this brand loyalty and stuff. It has no place in selecting the right equipment. It really doesn't.
I agree. You know, I started out in the unit shooting the 45. That's all we shot was 45s in 1911s, custom 45s. And so I'm really proficient at. Even to this day, I can pick up a cold gun out of the holster and probably keyhole it, my target on the first shot. In fact, when I do shooting courses, I don't even warm up. I don't warm up the day before, the week before, a few minutes before. I don't do warm-up drills. I just show up with my gun and my gear, put it on, and then I give my class, and then when it's time to do a demo shot, I just do it. And either I'm going to hit the target or I'm not. And so, because you don't get to warm up in a street fight either, right? Nope. So, you either know it or you don't. And so what I always do is rely on the nervous system. But let me say this about so I was also, as you know, without getting into too many details, I worked for OGA, and the agency is their standard firearm, sidearm for everybody is a Glock, right? Whether it's the 17 or the 19. Mm-hmm. And so that's really when I kind of got introduced to. I was forced to shoot it. Didn't want to, but I had to. And so the gun for me it's too big for my hand. I don't have very big hands. And so like a 45, I can get my hands around it really nice. It feels really well. Ergonomically, it fits perfectly. Whereas the Glock, I always felt like, man, this thing is like, it's like holding a square peg in my hand, and the whole thing, it looks like a big square thing in front of me. It just didn't feel like a gun, like not the ones that I'm used to shooting, right? But I've gotten very good at shooting the Glock, but I can tell you, all the years I've been shooting a Glock now, whether it's a 17 or 19, I can still shoot a 45 better because the 45 fits my hand better. And I've set my 45 up so it's got a flat mainspring housing on the back and all those things. So I've set it up so it fits my hand perfect. So you're right. Fitting the gun to your hand is important. It's too easy to go out and just pick up a gun that's too big for your hand because then you don't get the right purchase on the weapon. And then you get flipped, you get recoil, you get all kinds of weird things happen. You don't get your finger all the way into the trigger well, and then you either index it to the left or you pull it to the right. So there's all these issues associated with. So to your point, if you're going to get a firearm, it's almost like getting a bowling ball, make sure it's drilled through your fingers, it's the right weight, and all those times. Fit it, right? So, optimize your chance for survival. Don't go out there in a gunfight and kind of wing it. Which brings me to the next topic, which is, the classic 9mm versus 45, dialectic, which one's better, and
which one puts a hole in it? They both do, but I want more ammo.
They're both, I consider.
Well, that's actually funny because you're right. And so I still shoot a 45, and I got people telling me, your gun's an antique, you're an antique, blah, blah, blah. And, you can only hold 7 rounds, I can hold 14. And I'm like, well, if you can hold, do you really need 14 rounds to shoot me? Because all I need is 1 round. Because I'm going to shoot you in the head, and I'm going to shoot 7 guys in the head. That's because I actually apply, my combat marksmanship fundamentals. I don't rely on volume. Right. So I rely on quantity or quality, and so, so we can have that kind of dialectic all day long. At the end of the day, it always comes down to what? Shot placement, right? And who can apply more fundamentals faster and accurately in the shortest amount of time, right? That's the guy who's going to win the fight. Whoever's got the best fundamentals, under pressure, I'll add that part, under pressure, stress, who can apply those fundamentals under pressure, can get that shot off and get it off accurately. That's the guy that's going to win. So don't come tell me I got a race gun, I got all these bullets and stuff, and
Gucci guns.
And so again, people don't know what they don't know, and we got instructors out there that have zero experience, and they're teaching, they're teaching what was handed down to them, and it sounds like a good idea, but they leave out some important elements, and that is not just, you can't just teach basic fundamentals. You've got to teach the other part, what happens to your physiology and your psychology in combat.
Absolutely, so, Dale. Anyway. We could talk about this all day long, brother. I'm going to call you a little later and see what we're going to do next time. We're going to wrap it up for the day, but remember, xduns.com. xguns.com is where you go to get your pistol fitted right, as we've been talking about with Dale Comstock today, and with Steve Armstrong from xguns.com. Make sure that you don't just go out and buy a gun because somebody tells you to buy a gun, right? Come see a professional. Come see X-Guns. Come see VegasCCW.com. And we'll get this done for you. We'll be back next week at the same time. This is the Double Tap Show.